mine is that you thought about your wife. And like I was sharing with Heather, it's the emotional connection that is important to us in that state of mind and consciousness. And that's what motivated you to come back or whatever. I've heard that so many times where people, mothers have thought about their children, and that's what brings them back. And the other thing is about the shards of light going through you. And that's how it was with me. It was penetrating, and it infected me, and it changed me dramatically, as it did you. I want to thank you for sharing that, because it's an intimate thing for people who've had near-death experiences to share that with them. It's hard to put into words, and there's a lot of people who don't understand. So there's a lot of people who are reluctant, who've had experiences who are reluctant to share that, and I just want to thank you for sharing it with as much detail as you did, because I really appreciate it, and I think we all have benefited from it.
Oh my God, no wonder he held on the line for so long to tell us all of that. My gosh. And there was a lot that I related to also in that. I want to see if we can't, it really is kind of difficult to move on from a call like that and a story like that. But I do want to see if we can't squeeze in one more call here while we've got you and we've got the time. On line 4, you're on the air with Dr. Albert Taylor. Welcome to the show.
Wow, you're squeezing me in here, Heather? Thank you very much.
Well, I aim to please.
Okay, let's see if we can do it. I don't even know if I can even get it short enough. I'm one of these guys who I feel like I don't really have anything. There's no love or emotional thing to like bring me back if I leave this life. So I don't know if I want to even come back anymore. But
now hang on. You're a part of my audience, sir. That means something to me. Okay.
I suppose so, but it sure would be nice if some of these people, like I always want to say, putting out the word, all you people in Austin, if you want to come out here and say hello to me and be my friend, I would really appreciate it, because I'm out here in the woods again. But
well, what was your question for Dr. Taylor?
The question, I had a bunch of questions when I started, but anyway, I'm trying to get it done real quick. The biggest problem I have is that I sometimes worry. I've always been very careful about my thinking and everything else, and I don't want to be deluding myself. I have praise for Dr. Taylor. What I want to say is that he's so matter of fact about this stuff, and you give the sense that it actually is real. And I have had experiences myself, but of course over the years, I began to even doubt those experiences. And I've also had experiences as a result of having had one amazing experience where I just went off, I can't even remember it, because you can't live in this individuated being and still remember what that other experience is, which is kind of just being infinitely expanded in space and time.
Well, sir, we're out of program.
Out of time.
Yeah.
We're out of program.
I really wanted to get your...
Write me.
Yes, please. There you go. Doctor, can you give out your email address, please?
It's soltraveler@AOL.com, or go to my website, alberttaylor.com, and you can email me from there.
All right, alberttaylor.com. If anybody didn't get the chance to ask Dr. Taylor the burning question on their mind, that would be the way to do it. Contact him through his website, because there are still calls on the line. There are still calls coming in. I think in the last half hour, people realize, oh my God, I need to talk to him. There's still a chance to talk to Dr. Taylor. You can contact him through his website. It feels to me like we just got on the air a couple minutes ago, Doctor. So thank you so much for coming on tonight. This is really great, and I learned a lot, a whole lot, and I hope that the listening audience did also.
Well, if I've shared something with you and you've learned a lot, that makes it all worthwhile, Heather.
And, whenever I get calls about sleep paralysis and night terrors, now I know what to say.
Right.
So
Awesome.
that's an incredible thing. And look, Dr. Taylor, everybody, I mean, was I right or what? Look, I thank you. AlbertTaylor.com. That is the website if you didn't get a chance to ask him your question. Also, his book that's available everywhere is Soul Traveler. Highly recommend that book. And what a ride we went for tonight, everybody. Sweet dreams and have a good night. I'll catch you here tomorrow.
Midnight in the desert, and we're listening. Listening to you, and we're listening. We're listening to you.
Let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery.
Pain wound up seating. Important to go to your calls and thoughts. Welcome about whatever is on your mind. We're actually starting with some big news out of Puerto Rico, where that territory has been in debt for many, many years. And
many moons.
Yes, also many moons, because there are several moons in a year.
And really kind of a setup. You know what I mean? Just the way it was organized and the regulations that the U.S. put in place around Puerto Rico.
Right, and
it was kind of inevitable to me.
So before we get into the story, Heather, that you brought in, I want to give a little bit of history, if you will.
Sure, go for it.
Because, most people realize that Puerto Rico is a territory. Some people don't realize that. I remember when I worked for an airline, somebody was like, oh, don't I need a passport to go to Puerto Rico?
How long has it been a territory?
Since 1898.
Was that when we...
That's when Spain wound up ceding Puerto Rico and Cuba and the Philippines and several other places to the U.S. at the end of the Spanish-American War. And Cuba and Philippines ultimately wound up getting independence. Puerto Rico, not so much.
Yeah, and I think you and I both agree that the Spanish-American War was sort of the jumping point for American imperialism. Would you?
I disagree with that.
Okay.
Only because I think American imperialism started about 95 years prior with the purchase of the Louisiana Purchase.
Okay, there you go. But it really was, to me, it was the first time it was American adventurism. We're going to go out and we're going to sort of pick a fight and then seize a bunch of stuff.
Certainly. So, because Puerto Rico is a territory and not a state, Congress, over the last 100 years or so, has wound up making some exemptions for Puerto Rico and then ultimately repealing some of those exemptions. From the Wiki article on the Puerto Rican government debt crisis, they mentioned the Jones-Shafert Act, which exempted Puerto Ricans from paying federal income tax and provided a tax credit that allowed U.S. companies to effectively operate on the island tax-free. The act exempted interest payments from bonds issued by the government of Puerto Rico and its subdivisions from federal, state, and local income tax, regardless of where the bondholder resided. And this is very important because a lot of the debt that Puerto Rico now has is from the sale of these various municipal bonds. And back in... skipping down here a little bit, I I believe it was the late 90s, early aughts, the tax credit was eliminated, causing the island to lose about 80,000 jobs. The population shrank and the economy began to contract. It was not until Puerto Rico enlarged its outstanding debt to $71 billion, an amount approximately equal to 68% of the island's GDP, that Puerto Rican bonds were downgraded to non-investment grade, better known as junk bonds. And that happened in 2014, and over the last couple of years, people and various officials in Puerto Rico have been begging the U.S. Congress to allow them to file Chapter 9 bankruptcy, something that they are not allowed to do. So Congress wound up coming to a compromise last year and passing something called the Puerto Rico Oversight Management and Economic Stability Act, or PROMESA. And this allows some form of bankruptcy. And Heather, this is where your story begins.
Okay, so this story actually comes from USA Today. It's titled Puerto Rico Declares Bankruptcy. And here's how it's going to unfold. Facing mountainous debt and population loss, the board overseeing Puerto Rico filed Wednesday for the equivalent of bankruptcy protection in a historic move that's sure to trigger a fierce legal battle with the fate of the island's citizens, creditors, and workers at stake. The Oversight Board, appointed to lead the U.S. territory back to fiscal sustainability, declared in a court filing that it is unable to provide its citizens effective services, crushed by $74 billion in debts and $49 billion in pension liabilities, which is what I had asked Daryl earlier, is pension liabilities, specifically government employee pensions. Is that where that $49 billion comes from, or is that Social Security too?
Social Security is different from pensions, and I am not entirely positive, but I'm fairly certain that the pension liability is in addition to the debt.
The way it's written, it says $74 billion in debts and $49 billion in pension liabilities.
Right. So if you look at the U.S. federal government, where we know that the national debt is about $20 trillion, and then there's about another $100 trillion of unfunded liabilities.
Well, there's 76 billion or something just from the number of people that are going to be turning 65 and eligible to collect Social Security over the next decade. I think so. It puts our national debt up to 70-something trillion, because I sold Medicare supplements.
I'm not sure exactly what the numbers are, but it's a ticking time bomb, just like Puerto Rico's has been. So I would suspect, too, that those are probably government worker pensions.
Yes.
Number one. Number two, this is government speak. We'll talk about how much we have in one column of the ledger as far as our balances go, but we're going to completely ignore this other part where it's the stuff that we've rang up, but it hasn't really due yet, so we're not counting it.
Right.
It's our unfunded liabilities.
The unfunded liabilities of, here's all the stuff that we know we have to buy, but we've not actually borrowed money for yet. So let's put this in.
I don't think that government employees should even why don't they invest in their own retirement funds like everybody else?
Well, they do kind of invest in a retirement fund, but that retirement fund is basically in the form of these municipal bonds that up until about a decade ago were doing pretty good in Puerto Rico, to where, governments around the country were just, investing in these municipal bonds, to where, it's just this very easy way to earn some interest.
And when you put government in charge of coming up with government's retirement plan or government's benefit package, somehow they always get these really, really, really great deals.
A friend of mine that actually works for one of the prisons in Massachusetts, he's one of the security guards. And I was telling him, I'm like, is that really what you want to do for the rest of your life? And he's like, well, the pension that I'm going to have when I get out of this place is going to be
oh yeah,
so great. And I'm thinking, I don't know, man, the way this country's headed, I wouldn't bank on it.
So let me try to explain this unfunded liability in an individual manner. It would be akin to you have $80,000 worth of credit card debt. You're bringing in about $75,000 a year, and you know that your light bill is due for the next 3 months. You've not gotten the bill yet, and you've not borrowed money for the bill yet, but you know that it's due. So that's an unfunded liability of things that you know you have to pay for that you've not either paid or borrowed money for yet.
And in government's case, they'll just continue to spend recklessly, unlike you or me, who might go, oh boy, I got that electric. I like light. I like heat in my house.
Now, do you feel like when it comes to things like Social Security and stuff like that, like, people obviously paid into those, right? So do you feel like they should promises like that, as far as, because it's like government, even though it's funded by taxation, which is essentially theft, because we don't have, you know what I mean? But at the same time, do you think promises made by the government to that extent, like, oh, if you give us X amount of dollars, we'll pay you this for the next 20 years, do you think the people that...
Well, the thing, and we'll continue the discussion on Social Security, but it's not something that people are voluntarily opting into. It's government stealing money and saying, we'll pay you back at a later date.
Someone has told me that you can opt out of it, though. Is that true? We'll talk.
Not as far as I know. We'll cover it after this.
It's incredibly difficult to opt out of, and basically requires you to be a recluse of some sort. Your calls and thoughts welcome. 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. In studio, it's Daryl.
And Heather.
And Chris.
And we'll get to your calls in just a second. And we know that the government of Puerto Rico is messed up, because that's what we've been talking about. But you know what else is messed up? The healthcare system in the United States. We need a healthcare system that focuses on health, not sickness. Sure, health insurance pays for treating sickness, but it gives you nothing for being healthy. Doesn't that actually incentivize illness instead of health? Well, there is a free market healthcare company that can give you freedom from health insurance. HealthExcellenceSelect.com. They give you a proactive health assessment daily and no-charge 24-hour access to doctors. HIPAA has messed up medical records so much that one doctor doesn't know what the other doctors are doing. How about a medical information card that you can give to EMS, first responders, the emergency room, or whatever medical professional you want? Check them out right now at HealthExcellenceSelect.com. Any kind of doctor, traditional, integrative, chiropractic, acupuncture, and massage. You'll love the service and the price. HealthExcellenceSelect.com. Let's go to Skype, where we've got a Demo, friend of the show, no longer living in New Hampshire for some odd reason, and facing some court stuffs. Demo, welcome to Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Yeah, not living in New Hampshire, at least for the foreseeable future, just because, like you mentioned, I'm fighting a marijuana case down here in Ohio, and I was bonded out about a month and a half ago, facing 2 felony charges, one for possession and one for trafficking, stemming from a stop back in February. But and something that I think is a telling sign of the war on drugs end, at least in and with marijuana. It seems like the state isn't too interested in getting to a trial anytime soon. They set my next court date for motions all the way in August, just last week.
Hold on, so, I thought we had supposedly the right to a speedy trial.
They do. They believe they have 260 days here.
Speedy by whose count is that?
Well, when you're tortoise or the sloth.
Right. I guess when you're in the business of harassing, peaceful people or just users of drugs and shoveling them through as fast as possible, that deadline really is never that big of a deal, because, even when I was in jail for 44 days, I watched at least 500 people take some sort of plea deals on drug charges.
So I got to ask you, Demo, with all this drama and everything you're facing, what were you doing? Were you sitting outside of a grade school rolling joints and giving them away free to kindergartners or something like that?
The youngest, most pliable people possible, and latch them on to the
the
gateway drug.
evils of marijuana. But to be, yeah,
So
and I'm
before
being,
anybody thinks that you're being serious,
and
then
I'm
that's what
being
you-
completely
no way
facetious. You were
anybody's
driving
being
along.
serious.
You were driving
Exactly.
along, right?
The alleged reason for a stop is because the license plate light was out on my vehicle. And I recently got my Discovery, and that video doesn't seem to tell that same exact tale. You know, if anything, it's February. There might be some road dirt on the light where it might be dim.
Or snow.
But it's definitely questionable on whether or not that light, well, it's definitely not out.
So I'm going to go facetious one more time and say, how many people died along the highways of America, Ademo, because that license plate light was out? Was there
Right,
just a path of destruction, death and destruction behind you?
Well, I have a pretty thick Discovery, in terms of this being that type of traffic stop. But there's nothing in there about a victim or a hospital bill of an injured party or what damage the roadway or people on it could have taken. You know, it's not like a piece of my car flew through somebody's windshield
Exactly.
and I just drove away or anything like that. So there are no actual victims. There's a lot of people who claim to work for the state of Ohio, the county of whatever, and stuff like that. And they all seem to have a commonality amongst them, and that is they all work for the state.
Right.
You know, the alleged man who prevented the crime and saved the community that night, the prosecutor, judge, they all work for the same people. So it's pretty interesting stuff.
Of course, it's going to be everybody involved. As far as the plaintiff is going to be some government agent because you committed the only real crime that exists, and that is disobeying the state.
Exactly. It's just a way for them to control us. There's no other way really to put it.
I mean, it's unfortunate, too, that, the police departments, to a degree, they're just doing their job, but at the same time, because of the way it's set up in most states, there's an incentive for them to keep drugs on the street and to keep harassing people like you for nonviolent crimes because that's what funds their department.
Right, and the whole, just doing my job thing, that was an excuse that the Nazis used, and the Nuremberg trial said I'm just doing my job is not a valid excuse for violating people's human rights.
Well, for Nazis, not for police officers.
I hear you. I'd like to take if you take a look at it, my example, and this is what I'd expect for a jury to hear one day, if that's where it goes, is that, this alleged illicit product has killed how many people? 0. This alleged crime harmed how many people? 0. The alleged person we're accusing of doing this, not the alleged, the person that we're accusing of doing this has harmed how many people in his life? How many people has he harmed besides the 0 and 0 that we just mentioned? 0. I've never been accused or convicted of a crime that's harmed somebody else, used bodily force, stolen their property, deceived them by fraud. And so the jury should ask, do we have prisons built for people who aren't harming anybody ever and whose alleged illicit product hasn't harmed anybody?
That's basically who's in prison.
Yeah.
Right. Why do we need to do this and further ruin somebody else's life possibly and burden all of ourselves and everybody not present, i.e. taxpayers, with something that's just for the state? There is no win-win-win ever in this equation for the quote-unquote citizen, Right. Not myself as a citizen, not any of the jurors as a citizen, not for any taxpayer in the county or the state of Ohio is benefiting from locking me or anyone they accuse of such things in a cage for these actions. Again, go ahead.
You mentioned the possibility of bringing some of this before a jury. You will be able to get a jury trial?
I definitely get a jury trial because I'm facing 2 felonies, F3s. That's like the middle of the road here in Ohio.
Right.
They carry a maximum of 3 years in prison, and that's just pretty absurd that, last year Ohio nearly passed recreational and did pass a medical marijuana law. And there's several aspects of the medical marijuana law, without getting too lengthy into it, that haven't been implemented yet, though they were tabled to be implemented March 1st by the government. And then they totally surpassed their due date, still don't have anything. And part of that law is reciprocating other medical marijuana patients from other states,
right.
Which I actually am in Colorado.
I'll tell you, This is why I think our lawmakers, quote unquote, should spend more time repealing than they do passing.
Absolutely. Ademo, thank you for the call. Definitely keep us updated as this winds up going through the process. And where can people find out more about your case, real quick?
Copblock.org. Search free Ademo.
Copblock.org. Search free Ademo.
Thanks
this
for the
is
call.
Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE.
Everyone has something in their lives or just about themselves that they want to change, from trying to lose weight to becoming more motivated at work. Change is difficult, but the good news is no matter what, you don't have to go through it alone. Hypnotherapy can help you remove negative subconscious thoughts that keep you from achieving your goals. Never rely on just willpower again. Contact us at afterhourshypnotherapy.com today for your free consultation. Or contact Melvin Marsh at 678-658-8483.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. In studio, it's Daryl.
And Heather.
And Chris.
And we'll get back to the Puerto Rico story in just a moment, to Skype, where we've got Liberty Lover calling in. Liberty Lover, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Hey, how are you all tonight?
Good, how are you?
You're on the air. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Good. First of all, I have to correct that last guy who was talking about how, recreational weed almost passed here in Ohio. I remember when that initiative came through, it failed by over 30 points. In fact, there were two issues. There was one that would have allowed for recreational marijuana, and another issue that would have blocked the other one. The one that would have blocked the one with weed going through was voted, and it was really close. But the one that would have just outright legalized recreational marijuana lost by over 30 points. I don't know why he said that it would have almost gone through that.
What do you mean by 30 points? What does that mean?
Ohio issue 3, it would have allowed for recreational marijuana. It lost by 30 points.
Yeah, but what is
So
what
there
is
was a
points? Is that 30
difference.
people? 30
30%. 30% difference
Okay.
between the yes votes and the no votes.
Yep.
So it was not close at all. And if I recall correctly, there was a cronyism issue, which basically wound up causing that to fail, correct?
Actually, the bill that would have allowed the cronyism passed, issue 2.
Ah, okay.
Shocker.
Yeah, but the one that would have actually allowed you to, grow it in your backyard as much as you want and smoke it, that failed by a large initiative. I mean, a large amount. I don't know why that would have been. But the main thing I was going to call in was about Social Security. You guys had talked about how, people had paid into that. Well, that's one of the things I get into arguments a lot with my dad over, is he says, I paid in, so I'm entitled to every last bit of that money, and how Social Security shouldn't go away because it would just screw over all the people that have paid into it.
But that's no different than if I were to invest in retirement with, New York Life, and then all of a sudden New York Life was no longer around and failed at doing business. Is it?
That slight difference is because you had a choice.
Exactly, but I'm saying that, if his choice was to,
you don't really have a choice. If you're working a job where you get a paycheck from some company, you don't have a choice of paying into Social Security.
It's just taken.
If there are ways that you can, wind up, quote unquote, opting out of Social Security by working for yourself and then just not filing tax return or something along those lines, but there's not really a way to where you can just send a letter to Social Security saying, my name is Heather and I don't want to participate. It doesn't work like that.
Well, if you're a minister, for example, like if you work for some sort of religious institution, you are able to opt out. You have to have some sort of religious grounds.
Well, you also have to, as I understand it, and this is not legal advice or financial advice, but my understanding is that even, the select groups of people that opt out for religious reasons still have to provide some sort of documentation that they're investing in some kind of retirement thing, or that there's something in place to provide them.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I mean, a lot of people, we sort of have this feeling that, Social Security that's as American as apple pie. Well, it's not like we've had this since the country became a country. We've had this since the progressives took control of pretty much the whole country with the Great Depression. And Social Security was supposed to be a temporary measure.
Yes.
And that's it. But now, I mean, if you, God forbid, you bring up doing anything away, it's the third rail of American politics, and you can't talk about it. Heather, to answer your question, yeah, I have no personal issue with anybody getting money back from a government that stole it in the first place, because you're never going to get as much back, but you'll get some of it. But we've got to come up with a way to transition future generations and future workers out of being forced into doing this.
And just something very interesting. Apparently, apple pie originated in Western Europe. So apple pie is not even that American.
Oh, come on. The Liberty Lover's going to take issue with my point. I look forward to it. Please.
What I was going to say is when we're talking about Social Security, a lot of people don't understand that it was supposed to be a temporary thing. And to my knowledge, I think income tax was supposed to be as well. And a lot of people,
the Mass Pike.
Well, yeah, and much more limited, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things that everybody tells me when I try to talk about abolishing Social Security is, well, what about, as I said, what about all the people that paid into it? But not only that, a lot of people are like, well, the only reason Social Security is going to fail is because the Republicans keep stealing from it.
That's the biggest lie ever. It's that if you go back and look through the congressional history of various times that the federal government has dipped into Social Security, it's been when there have been Democratic-controlled Congresses.
So what do you guys think is the easiest way to implement ending the program while giving people a fair enough share of what they paid in without it
If I were the magic dictator of the United States and I could control everything, I would just refund everybody their money, but you'd have to do that incrementally. One of the ways you could do it, I think, would be to allow people to opt out first. Because if you look at all the millennials, if you tell them, hey, by the way, you can keep more of your paycheck and use it on whatever you want, do you realize how many people are going to be like, I want my money now, I want out of this? I, for one, can tell you that I would definitely jump at the shot to do that.
Sure.
Right.
And the way to pay it back would be, some people could say you could use a monthly system, other would say one big lump sum, because what you paid in, that wouldn't be a problem, giving it all back in one lump sum, because they clearly have the money, right?
Right.
What are you so afraid of, federal government?
Yeah, that would not be pretty. But I know where I definitely agree with you on those points. I think that is the only moral way to tackle this problem, and for the people to never allow your officials to pass such an abomination again. That's the biggest challenge, and I don't know if that'll ever go away.
They're doing their job. Social Security is, to my knowledge, the most approved of government program out there.
It's also the most approved of Ponzi scheme in the history of the world.
I completely agree with you there, Daryl. Their brainwashing seems to be working.
By Ponzi scheme, there might be some people that aren't really familiar what Ponzi scheme is. Ponzi scheme is a thing to where the early investors are paid by the later investors, and you have to keep suckering investors in. And then, ultimately you run out of other people's money to be able to pay your early investors.
I was going to say, what do you guys think about raising the retirement age? Because back when Social Security was first introduced, people weren't living as long as they are today. Because medicine and technology's advanced, now people are living into their 80s, 90s, 100s.
Raising the retirement age would be a good temporary step. But shouldn't people determine when they retire on their own?
Thank you.
Yes, there should not. I don't think there should be a government-sanctioned retirement age.
If I want to retire, go ahead. Sorry.
Nope. Go ahead.
What I was going to say was, if you save early and you have the money to retire at 50, retire at 50. If you save later and you can retire at 80, you can retire later. But I agree with Daryl. The government should not give you a recommended retirement age where they give you back the money they stole from you in the first place. It seems like just a stupid way to control people's retirements.
And retirement also seems to be a more recent invention in human history to where, previously people would just keep working as long as they were able to do so. And now we just sort of expect that at some point you stop working and then you just, live out the rest of your life. And I think that's one of the reasons that, some people wind up dying is they have no more meaning in life because, well, I'm not doing anything productive.
We got to talk about Ida Mae Fuller.
Ida Mae Fuller, Liberty Lover. I'm not sure if you have more. If so, hang on. Your calls and thoughts. Welcome. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live. What are your thoughts on socialist security? This is Free Talk Live. 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And we're talking about Social Security, to where, the claim is you're investing this money and then, you're saving for your retirement. Well, how would you like to actually wind up saving money? Well, you can do that with saveatpurse.com. You can save a guaranteed 5% at saveatpurse.com. You can save up to 20, 25, 30%, up to 33% maximum at saveatpurse.com. Now, the way you save is you put things into an Amazon wish list, you import the wish list into saveatpurse.com, and then after you select the discount you want, you fund the account with Bitcoin, which crossed over $1,600 at some point earlier today, I believe. It's somewhere still over 1,500. I don't have the figure in front of me, but it's somewhere close to that, and it's just been continuing to rise recently. Saveatpurse.com. Again, you fund the account with Bitcoin, and you can save big. I've been using it for over 2 years, used it about 60 times, and saved well over $500, somewhere close to $600. Saveatpurse.com. Chris, you were going to tell us about Ida Mae Fuller.
I just love the story of Ida Mae Fuller. I'm sorry. So, for those of you, we've been talking about Social Security and whether it's moral or immoral to take out money that you've already paid into the system, and I brought up the subject of Ida Mae Fuller. Ida Mae Fuller was the first Social Security recipient. So she was the first one, the first American who ever got a check from the government under the Social Security program.
So she must have, paid into this thing from the time it was created, and
she did.
Wound up,
So let's talk about that.
Paying for, her entire life, right?
Well, not her entire life, but she started paying when Social Security began, being taken from her wages. In June of 1937, she had $450 in earnings, and that was, I think, for 6 months or a quarter or something like that. But they docked $4.50 out of her wages.
Okay.
And then, in December 1937, another $4.50 came out. March of 1938, $2.25 contribution. It kind of went on like this until she retired in 1940. And her total contributions into the Social Security program were $24.75.
Okay, so she paid in $24.75, and I'm guessing
she probably got...
she wound up getting like $3 a week from Social Security?
No. Her initial check when she filed was $22.54, so $2.21.
If you want me to do this again, just for fun, I'll probably talk more next time, but I just like having shit in the background. But if you want me to do this again and enjoy it, let me know. That's all. Love you guys.